Arron, thank you so much for doing this. It's really nice to meet you.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
I just wanted to kick things off by asking you the question which we kick off all our discussions with, and that's, what's the wrong you want to right?
I think the major wrong I want to right is that clients, we're talking advertising obviously, I'd like to get rid of nuclear war and nuclear weapons, but I assume that's not the direction we're going. I see that advertising agencies, particularly the large media agencies, have been pulling the wool over clients' eyes for a long time. I don't think necessarily as a deliberate act. I think they've got themselves in a situation where they're tied to methods that no longer work, and therefore they're, in order to protect themselves, sort of forced into that position. I also believe that creative and media has been separated incorrectly, and our mission of pushing those back together and always delivering comes through social, but it's really about that. I had a brand before we had an advertising agency, used what felt like every agency going, spending a lot of money, and always got under-delivered, over-promised and under-delivered. So our big ethos from the beginning, and still is that we're just not going to do that. We're going to under-promise and over-deliver. There's lots of industries where everybody under-promises and over-delivers, and then there are some where it's the other way around, and advertising is one of those where everybody gets sort of 80% of what they thought they were going to get. And we just thought that was crazy. So really that is what we kick against. That has then formed into creative and media coming together, which I think is a critical part of it, but it's about value.
And how do you think the marketing and advertising industry has got to that point? How's the industry let itself get to that point?
Well, one step at a time. It's the problem is that what's right now won't be right in 2 years' time. What's right 2 years ago is not right now. And the world in the last 10 years, because of the smartphone, has changed at, I think, a pretty unprecedented rates. I mean, when you had TV as a new channel, it took decades for that to become mainstream. It took decades for there to actually be TVs in every house and everything else. Radio, the same thing. So, most of these channels take a long time to form. Social, and therefore influencers, has been created in the last 10 years. And you could say, well, they've created social networks, but actually the creation of that is down to the smartphone. We've put devices in people's hands that have fundamentally changed how they engage with the world. The fact that people don't have smartphones then means that they have social, and if they have social, they're following people, so influencers then becomes an effective method. But all of this disruption has come through the smartphone. The programmatic wave, the last one, I think people put everything they had into it, and it hasn't quite worked in the way that I think everybody thought it would. This sort of fake personalization. The whole point of programmatic is to get a mass message to someone in as personalized a way as possible. But I think we all know it's not really personalized, because getting 2 or 3 data points from someone of where they've been and stuff like that doesn't mean you know who they are to give them a personal message. What social influencers has done is give people the actual ability to do personal messages and niche content to niche audiences, because people live in communities on social. If you're a football fan, you will follow other football fans and football accounts. If you're not, you won't. If you're into beauty and doing makeup designs and filming that, you're going to be in a community with other people that have got similar interests. So you actually get real, authentic, niche content, and that is so much more powerful than the programmatic wave before, that it's kind of made it redundant. So I think that is the biggest factor, that people have really lumped into programmatic, and the agency landscape is still dependent on TV to a large extent, right? All the major creative agencies rely on creating TV ads. All of the major media agencies rely on buying TV ads for their clients. There's certainly skill in making the TV ad. There's not a lot of skill in buying it. But that's where, 30, 40, 50% some brands spend their money is on that, with a message that's completely generalized to an audience they have no idea who's seeing it. It's all of that stuff is fine, and I'm not saying it's bad marketing, but none of it is as good as the personalized marketing that you can do on social. So brands are moving to it.
And you touched there about data, obviously, and perhaps we've become too obsessed in recent years of finding every single data point on everyone, so you can show someone the precise message at the precise time and the precise location, and it's unachievable to a large extent. But then you speak about creative as well, and what's your take on, I guess, from an influencer marketing perspective, where do those two things meet? What's the perfect blend of data and creative when it comes to influencer marketing?
Yeah. So there's two sides to it. From an influencer point of view, one of the lessons we learned very early on is not all influencers are created equal. And so 3 people that all have 100,000 followers, that all get the same engagement rate, that all talk about the same thing, if you make an assumption that they will deliver you the same result at the bottom of the funnel, you're going to be very disappointed. And so the data is key in the sense of, we pride ourselves on using only the top 20% that can actually deliver. So I don't really care what their following is or their engagements. If we're trying to get consumers to a website, I want to know what the cost per click is likely to be on those influencers, and that really is the decision that we're making it on. And then we want to know, well, of the last time they sent 10,000 clicks, how many actually bought, and what was that for, and everything else. So that data is really important, and it's a minefield out there. We've used over 100,000 influencers. We're doing 4,000 to 5,000 posts a week. We've got incredibly rich data sets.
So that's going much further than just sort of verifying that there's actual people following these people. It's verifying. What?
So it's about actions. It's about, we're only really interested when people do things, not influencers. We use influencers to get people to try and convince them to do things, but we're looking at. It might start with an engagement or tagging a brand, but likely it will go to a sale or to a change in perception for that brand, whatever it may be. We're trying to move people from one place to another and get them to act. If they don't act, we haven't done our job. We're simple people. We're not complicated advertising people that. For us, we try and simplify everything. The creative and media being separate just doesn't make any sense to me. As someone that's had their own brand and has, run startups, you don't look at it as different. The creative is only as good as where it goes, and vice versa. So anything that you're doing socially, you have to do the creative and the media together, because if you're putting a social post out, that is media. Even if it's from your brand account or it's from an influencer, it's media. But obviously what they say and how they say it is the creative. So, that we could put, we can use an influencer that we know works. If we put 2 different creative messages out, the outcome's completely different. So if we start thinking about that without those 2 things linked together, for us, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, there are reasons that the advertising world is set up in the way that it is, and it's mainly because of the agencies that currently exist, right? We live in a world where what most big brands do is go to, a BBH or an AMV or somebody like that, some very good creative agencies. They'll give them a load of money to come up with one idea, one TV ad. They'll make that TV ad, someone like John Lewis Christmas, that'd be £7 million. And then they'll go and stick 30 or 40 million into getting it out there, right? So now, the creative people won't be thinking about the channels that it's going on necessarily. Some of their planners might, but they can't tell the creative people to change their creative accordingly. So really those things get done independently because it suits the agencies to do them independently. It doesn't suit the client to do it separately. It suits the client to do it together to get the most out of it. But that's been very, very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do on most other platforms, to be honest, because you're not getting the feedback from the audience. Social, because of the social in our minds, is the only genuine 2-way communication channel. Everything else from an advertising point of view is a broadcast channel. Whatever you put on TV, you might get 50 people say, I didn't like that ad, but it's not really feedback. You put something on a billboard, unless someone scrawls on it, you're not really going to get fed back to. They're going to go on your website and tell you about it. It's very unlikely. Whereas you put something out on social, if people don't like it, they'll tell you straight away. And if they do like it, they'll tell you straight away. So you actually get to understand whether it's any good very, very quickly.
And is it the case that a lot of brands, big and small, are still just a bit scared of what social media really means, and that they're apprehensive to really to dive into something like influencer marketing? I guess what insights you kind of get from the sort of conversations you must be having with CMOs and marketing directors trying to wrestle these budgets from the...
Yeah, I think they're getting past that, to be honest. More and more now I'm talking to CMOs who, in their minds, have already decided that they have to change from this, TV first. And to be clear, I'm not anti-TV. I'm not anti any of these things. I think social first is the way forward. So I think brands should lead with social. But of course, somebody like an Audi or somebody like that, of course they should do TV ads. Of course they should do billboards. But it doesn't mean that should be the central point of their advertising strategy. Sorry, I've forgotten the question now. Oh, what are they saying? So, no, I'm finding actually more and more that people are looking for an alternative. They just lack a little bit of understanding of what those alternatives are. And that, people really do want an alternative to what they're doing with TV and what they're doing with their media agency. But these are huge amounts of money. The big brands, they want someone to go and spend 75, 80 million quid with, 200 million pounds with. They've been doing that with the same people for the last couple of years, and it's relatively comfortable, even if they've got declining results and they know it's not good for the long run. Well, it might be easier for that next year to keep doing that, to actually have to be brave enough to go, no, we're going to change this. Like, you're putting yourself out there. So that, I think, is what holds people back. The lack of options out there. There aren't many agencies like us that are really pushing this and driving this. Vast majority of agencies are still in the old model, and I mean 99.999% of them are still in the old model. So not every client can change to this right now because there aren't enough agencies to actually do it. So that is part of it as well. But I think in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, we're going to see more than 50% of brands with social first strategies. Any ones that are doing it now are killing it compared to their competitors, and it's patently obvious.
Yeah, they're
so you see all of the fast fashion brands versus the high street. Now, they've got a different, they don't have the stores, and all that's helpful. But look at how they do their marketing. Like, it's completely different, and they're flying, and the others aren't. And the others aren't really changing. Like, they're still just doing, well, let's shut a couple of stores. That's not going to do it. Like, you just shut 5% of stores a year, you're going to go out of business. Like, you need to change 50, 60% of what you're doing to make this work. Because consumers have changed. The smartphone has changed your consumer. So if you don't change, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, and you obviously touch on that old agency model there from a GOAT perspective. Obviously you guys have grown really, really fast over the last few years. Sort of specifically, what have you done with your model to try and counter those core problems which you identify?
So we started at the beginning really focused on the performance marketing side of it, because it's much more binary. So it's even, we make some brilliant content, but whether you think the content we make is better than someone else's is subjective, right? So, but if we deliver you a better CPA or a better CPC, or then it's not really a conversation. So we started very much on that. Is we're just going to be the best delivery agency in the world, and I believe we are. Then we deliver for clients, and they go, well, that's great. So once we built the trust, you go and get 50 grand from them, and then that's 100 the next month, because it's binary, right? You give me X, I give you 3Y, you're spending X somewhere else and only getting 1Y. Eventually, all of that will move over to us because it's just performance. So then we started to go up the funnel. We deliver a campaign that gets great results. What else can you do? And then we'd start to do the strategy, we'd start to do the creative around it, we'd start to start advising them on their other channels. Then we started to do much more creative stunt, sort of almost semi sort of PR branding side of things as well. Really just everything within social. Once, 4 years ago, when we said, the best performance marketing is influencer marketing, everyone went, no, it's absolute nonsense. Now, people kind of accept that. Now the thing that everyone hits us with, but you can't do any brand building on social, which is insane, right? It's just a channel. You can build a brand on any channel. It's about how you do it. And we've proven time and time again, we can build brands on social and other people can build brands on social. So we've gone from being really a performance marketing agency that specializes in social and influencers to being a social first advertising agency. And we've made TV ads for clients. Now there's social first ads that then go on TV, but we're not our suggestion is not go and give everything to influencers. It's social is the key here. Influencers are the distribution mechanism that moves people around social, but you've got to have the right creative. But you can build brand, you can do all of this on social because it's where people live, and because you can do it in niche content to niche audiences in niche communities, it's a hell of a lot more effective because you're actually not wasting money building that brand, and you can build your brand in 20 different ways to 20 different consumer groups because there isn't a one size fits all.
And this is one of the debates that's been sort of going around this year, is this whole brand versus performance type thing. Where should I be spending my money as a marketing director? Should I be shoring things up in the short term and making sure we convert people down the funnel, or should I be playing a long game and making sure people are still talking about me in 3 years' time?
Yeah.
But what your take is that influencer marketing works across the whole thing?
Yeah, it's just about what message you put down there, right? If we break things into sort of awareness, consideration, acquisition fundamentally. That but influencers can do the awareness bit. It's much softer and much more introductory. They can certainly do the consideration bit, and they can start talking about features and all these sorts of things. And they can do the acquisition bit if they've got the right trackable links with the right offers in the right audience, like with paid thrown into it. And we do a lot of influencer paid as well, which is obviously more on the acquisition side. So you can do all of this through influencers and social, just like you can do pure brand TV ads, or you can go on QVC and do pure acquisition stuff, right? You can do all of it on all of these channels. The reason everyone thinks brand is best for TV is because for the last 30 years that's what everyone who in TV has been telling you, right? And it probably was true 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Everybody watched TV all the time, but do they now? No. Some people do, but they watch it a lot less than they used to. If anyone's listening to this and has got kids between the age of 12 and 16, 17, I don't need to tell them. They know their kids aren't watching TV. So are they going to be in 5 or 10 years' time? No, not at all. Now, that doesn't mean, again, TV is just a type of screen. We've got a better screen. It fits in your hand now. Like that, whether it's on that screen or on this one, I'd rather have the one that's attached to someone than the one that's attached to a wall, personally. But I think, anybody that tells you that it's only this channel, it has to be this channel, it's because it's all they've got to do. I think my answer to everything isn't influencer marketing, right? It's, for a lot of it is, but not for everything. I think my answer to everything is peer-to-peer recommendations. Is find a way to get someone to advocate for something, because that's what humans make decisions based on, right? The reason we're all told growing up, don't listen to peer pressure, is because you can't help it, right? We all listen to peer pressure. So I believe in that. Now, that might be an event somewhere where someone is telling you, by the way, around the corner there's a brilliant party, right? Or it might be something that happens on social, or it might, but for us, it's always about an authentic peer-to-peer recommendation from one ideally human to another. And if you can do that at scale, that's what generates the best results.
Yeah. And I guess when it comes to young people, you kind of touched on it then, and you've obviously built a team of very young people who actually know how to connect with those type of people. Where do you see things? I guess it's always hard to future gaze, but where do you see things going in terms of how people will be buying in the future? The kids who are 12, 13 now, fast forward 5-10 years, what do you kind of see that type of customer journey looking like? And I guess you were also touching on it, but where does Goat then fit into that picture further down the line?
I think it's all going to change. I think if we're still, and what it's going to change into, you just have to look at China, to be honest, because the tech that they're working off now, their platforms they're working off, Weibo, WeChat, etc., all of them have full e-com built in, almost beyond our comprehension. Like if I put an English version of that app in front of the average person in the street here, they would not have any comprehension of what this was. Like it's crazy, and really it's WhatsApp, it's Facebook, it's Amazon, it's everything. Sky built into one product.
Who's driving that innovation in that market? Where's that? How have they got so far versus where we are, maybe?
I mean, they haven't got the same problems with IP laws, right? So they can just sort of copy stuff and you know, they're within 3 months of Facebook launching. There was a Facebook in China. It's not owned by Facebook. So, you know, they're semi-governmental, aren't they? So they've, you know, there's maybe ways and means, but they're just ahead. Their tech's better. They're just more advanced from a social and tech point of view. The facial recognition abilities throughout the whole country are, again, beyond anything that you can imagine. So if you imagine once face recognition's everywhere, like Apple Pay, all these things are meaningless, right? Because you don't need to press anything there. You walk into a shop in China, you just pick something up and walk out, and it gets paid for automatically. And you know,
it would invalidate so many other data sources.
so many other of these things will get swallowed up by that, basically. Whoever does that, maybe Facebook will do that, but you know, they obviously own WhatsApp and Instagram, lots of the other things anyway. So pushing those things together would create kind of that sort of thing. But that's the way the world's going, right? So it's still going to be off phones, I think. Now, will it be forever phones? No. At some point, the phone will disappear, and we'll be talking about retina displays, right? Like that's the reality. We might be talking about implants where that comes up, but the fundamental tenet for us is always going to be to try and get peer-to-peer recommendations, because that shouldn't change, right? Whether it was 10,000 years ago in a village, if one of those villagers went out and got stung by something, they'd come back to the village and be like, heads up, I got stung over there. And probably for the next 200 years, no one in that village will go near that area, right? That is the reality. Until one person wouldn't listen to that, and you know, it would all start again. But so yeah.
And I guess with that technology point, and obviously the fear that some people have with fast advance in technology is transparency and privacy and things like that. What's your kind of take on what's the most transparent way of doing influencer marketing at the moment? Like, what are the what are the processes that you put in place to, I guess, convince your clients of the value you're delivering, like a traditional advertising agency would do? Yeah.
So we from day one, you know, that was a critical.
Or maybe a traditional advertising agency wouldn't do.
No, well, the traditional ones might not, but certainly the media side would, right? So we understand what media agencies give to their clients, and so from day one, we knew if we're going to take budget from these people, we're going to have to be able to show our results in a very similar format to them. Because when we say, by the way, we'll give you 3 apples for the price of 1, they're going to say they're not the same apples. So we have to be able to show them, no, they are the same apples. And, you know, a lot of that will come from Facebook and the platforms, right? The Facebook paid clients are running. We will show the influencer Facebook side of it in an identical way. So they will be able to compare apples and apples. That, I think, is critical that you can do that. You can, because it isn't the same. When I say we beat someone on their cost per view, I don't just mean we've got a 1 second view, they've got I mean on 30-second views from an audience of 18 to 25-year-old women in London and Madrid, Rome, Paris, and whatever. You know what I mean? We're talking about this, all the same groupings and sort of consumer profiles that a normal advertising agency is doing. But we have a channel that delivers better value. So, we can put it up against it and it would deliver better value, partly because we're a really good agency, but to be clear, mainly because influencer marketing is undervalued compared to all those other channels. Yeah. That also won't be the case forever, right? But this will level up, and if in 3 or 4 years' time we're doing the same thing that we're doing now, we'll be out of business. We're going to have to innovate, and we do. The advantage really of us is not that we've done 100,000, used 100,000 different people. It's that we're doing 4,000 to 5,000 a week. So, algorithms change on social platforms every day without warning, and we will get information quicker than anyone else, which means we will act quicker than anyone else, which means we can optimize quicker than anyone else, and that's why we're able to do the best results. Our next biggest competitor might be doing 200 or 300 a week. So they're going to get data, but it might not be as rich as ours is because of the quantity. So we got to keep listening to that. We got to keep optimizing. We're not tied to anything. We don't own or manage any accounts. We never have. We never will. For that reason, I don't want to be tied to any of these platforms. If Facebook goes down tomorrow, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The audience tomorrow will just be on on a different platform, and we're completely cross-platform anyway. So, one launches, we're straight into them to try and start gathering data as quickly as possible. Yeah. So people, I think, will think, oh, we're an influencer agency. What are you doing, sort of Instagram and Facebook? We're doing platforms you've never heard of, right? It doesn't matter to us. It's peer-to-peer recommendations, at scale. And so if there's a more cost-effective new gaming platform where we can get 1 million people to see something and 100,000 of them act in a cheaper way than Twitch, we're going to move some of the budget from there to that new one, right? Mixer. There'll be another 6 that get released this year. 4 of them won't add value at all. 2 of them will. We'll just keep testing, keep optimizing. But when the phone becomes not the device, we need to make sure we're not tied to it, and that we are an advertising agency based on people rather than on technology.
And when it comes to platforms, then I wanted to ask you a bit about LinkedIn. Yeah. I think it was how I came across your agency, and probably how I'm sure lots of people are coming across your agency. Is the B2B world slowly catching up with the types of content that they can actually use to sell? And
so we've probably had 7 or 8 clients, but essentially buy the vlog from us, as in, for us to set that product up for them, all different industries. I think it's listen, the reason we did it, and we really didn't want to, right? We knew we had to do this for a couple of years and really held ourselves back. I don't want to put
reservations.
I don't want to put myself on a pedestal like that. I don't want, I've got no doubt some people watch that and think, who the fuck are these people, which I get. And we're certainly not trying to preach. We're trying to just show what's going on. But, I'm very, I'm self-aware. I see other people doing that and think, so I get it. Now, it's probably not a real reason not to do it, but it is the reason that was stopping us from doing it. Right. I believe that websites will phase out, and that a website being the portal of a company doesn't make a lot of sense when people are on social. And, so I think that will move to social. I then think we're going to move away, and we already are, from written sort of press releases and things like that to I think we've moved in the last couple of years from that to sort of high quality content. But actually, we live in a world full of bullshit, and so authenticity cuts through that so much better than you know, any of the sort of fancy stuff. You know, our vlogs, it's not about look how great we are. Like, it's just about this is who we are and what we're doing, and you can have a look. So if we're going through an RFP process or a procurement process with a client, to be honest, I just say, just go and watch the vlogs, right? You by all means come in and do whatever you want to do, but like, go and watch them. You'll get a pretty good idea of whether you want to work with us or not. Like, it's too difficult to fake this. We're putting 6 to 8 minutes vlog out a day, plus another maybe 10 minutes of content. Like, we haven't got the time. This is all live and completely real. And so I think clients feel like they know us before they know us. People wanting to work here feel like they know us before they come in the door. And I think that's a really powerful tool, because it gives you trust straight away. And, you know, it's and I'm sure there are people that have watched it and thought, I don't want to work with those guys, because
that's a good thing as well, right?
I'm sure that's happened. Yeah. But the ones that do really do, and they, you know, they'll trust us more, which means they'll get better work. And like, it is a sort of self-fulfilling. You come to us genuinely open-minded, like, we can do some amazing stuff. Like, you come to us with a very closed brief and expect magic, like, we'll probably do better than anyone else, but like, you won't get magic because you've given us a starting point that doesn't have a possibility of magic, right? So I think if you watch the vlog, you're more likely to think, yeah, okay, let's, like, I get it. Every day I get emails from CEOs just being like, sort of completely open-ended with just, what do you think? Like, any ideas? Like, I can suggest anything. Because they know there is sort of an element of trust that, you know, we're the guys that are going to come up with that cool, creative stuff.
Ultimately, it's like your culture is probably what shines through the most through that vlog.
Yeah.
How would you, I guess, what work have you done? How much focus have you placed on developing the culture at Goat? And I guess, how would you describe it?
We care enormously about the people that are here. They're more than anything else, right? If we've got a client who's being really, really difficult, like, I'll get rid of the client before I get rid of the someone that works here, right? If that person's great and I know they're great, like, so people's everything. We can't do this without them. You know, there's 3 of us that started this, 130 of us now. We're only, you know, the fastest growing agency in Europe and all these other things because of those people, right? The 3 of us, you know, can't contribute that much anymore, right? We're reliant on everyone else. So having a culture of people that really take opportunities, that go above and beyond, that run through brick walls, that don't have preconceived ideas of what's possible. You know, with us, probably only 4 or 5 people in our entire business that have worked at other agencies, deliberately, because they all believe they know where the limits of possibility are, right? They've seen something happen for 20 years or for five years, whatever it is, been told, oh no, we always do it like this. Whereas we haven't really been around long enough for that. So yeah, there are things that we know that are better, but a lot of the time, even if we know it, we'll start with a blank piece of paper just to make sure that we don't lose our innovation. The second we start giving people, you know, I've got a nearly 4-year-old and a nearly 2-year-old, and my Phoenix, my eldest, is constantly doing colouring in, right? And so I give the example, like, he'll have a snowman that's drawn out, and I feel like what people think creativity is giving someone that snowman and seeing how they colour it, right? And then going, oh, I was hoping for something else. Well, you shouldn't have given them bloody snowman. Whereas what we try to do, whenever possible, is give someone that blank piece of paper so that they come up with whatever they want, right? And then afterwards, if we want to push them towards a snowman, then we'll push them towards a snowman. But I always want to give them the blank piece of paper first.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way that we stop ourselves from going extinct, like, you know, the others around us. And to be clear, like, think the advertising agency in general is not great, but it's full of great people. I just think a lot of those people are stuck in structures that really limit them. You know, for an industry that prides itself on creativity, and you know, there's none that I see. Like, really is none. Like, so you have a period where every TV ad is is one that has nothing to do with the product and is really heartfelt and emotional. Well, there's nothing ingenious about that. Like, it's I don't get it. Right? It's again, you've already drawn the snowman, right? And they're just colouring it in. Like, so when someone actually goes and breaks that and does something completely different, the best ad I've seen recently is done by I'm pretty sure it's done by Uncommon. It's the Chili's ad. I don't know if you've seen it.
Right, I don't think
Watch it. It is. I watched it last night and I burst into hysterics, and I watched the ad again. I do not remember ever doing that, and it's just completely insane. So different to everything else
I've
that I
seen
see.
that Instagram stuff, but that's just like direct
It's
product based stuff.
This is not product based,
right.
but it's just that it's so mad, right? And I feel like we've lost the madness in advertising. Advertising should be filled of crazy people that are completely off the walls, right? Like walking around in spacesuits and doing other weird stuff, but it isn't. It's full of people that think that's what it is, but actually they're very cookie cutter, you know, and the ECD might be different to the average person, but all the ECDs are the same. You know what I mean? So the output's the same because they're all the same. Now, I'm not saying they're normal, so those ECDs are brilliant, but when everybody has the same type of person, the output is going to be the same.
That's interesting. We did an event with Rory Sutherland a few months ago, and he's obsessed with the sort of behavioural psychology, but he's obsessed with trying to get the point across. It's like the opposite of what you think is a good idea is probably also a good, if not even better idea.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about, is the ways of how you try and encourage that type of creativity and also that type of bravery, I guess, in people.
I think the bravery should be, you know, the bravery, I think, is an age thing that we have. But it's also our attitude. Like, people talk to me all the time. You know, someone said to me on a podcast the other day, but what do you do with serious brands? And I thought, what the fuck's a serious brand? Like, what are you talking about? It's a brand. No one gives a shit. Like, nobody cares. People care about themselves. Find a way to make that relevant to that person. Tell a story that actually touches them, that then gets them to act because of it. Like, that's it. I don't care if you're a bank. It doesn't mean you have to be serious. It's, you know, maybe a funeral director. Like, maybe that's it. Like,
yeah.
But like, even you go have an operation, you want the surgeon to crack a joke. Like, you might not think that. You don't want a comedian, but everybody wants, you know, it's just life. Everybody breaks it up. Nothing's that serious, you know. I'm constantly telling people here it's not life and death. Like, it's just advertising. Like,
Yeah.
What's the mistake that we make? You know, it isn't that 10,000 people die. It's that, you know, some brand manager somewhere might go, oh, wasn't sure about that. Okay.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, like, it'll be fine. Like, it's you know, all of these stunts that people do, like the Tesla one, right? I don't know if that's the Tesla Cybertruck one where they broke the glass. Maybe that's real, and I'm sure there was someone there panicking, someone serious going, yeah, but like, the glass broke. You know, and we're Tesla. That can't happen. You know, like, the glass broke, but nobody gives a shit. Like, it got everybody looking at it. Now, I'm not saying any publicity's good publicity either, but brands in general and people, I think, take themselves too seriously. And, you know, that, like, it's the old, I'm sure people in advertising hear this all the time. But the number of brands that have said to me, betting brands who have said, so we were thinking we want to be like Paddy Power. Not quite that far, but, you know, close to Paddy Power. You can't be close to Paddy Power. You either are willing to do that and cross the line, or you're not. But if you're not, you'll never be like Paddy Power, right? you either are willing to jump over that and take a risk, or you're not. And people want to take the risk, but they don't really want to a lot of the time because of fear of things. And I think the fear is too great. I think it doesn't really matter what brands think of themselves, in my opinion. It only matters what consumers do. And the number of brand books I see and read and think, this is just not the truth at all. And I'm not doing it from an advertiser, I'm just as a consumer. I've been in that shop, I know that brand. Like, this is not what I or anybody else thinks about you. So starting point for me would be, what do people actually think about us? And then fine, what do we want to change that to? But it doesn't seem to work like that. It seems to be, this is who we are, and then let's make sure that everyone says that. And we just keep hammering that into people until they believe it. But there's too much information out there now. Brands saying, oh, I'm not sure we'll go on social. Okay, but all of your consumers will. And if they had a bad experience, they're going to go and talk about it. And the fact that whether you're on social or not doesn't make any difference. Right? That's where they're going to do. People want to stay in a hotel now. They're going to go on Instagram, not TripAdvisor. They're going to go on Instagram. They're going to look at what other people are actually posting in that hotel. Because I don't trust the photos the hotel put up, because they all look great, but we've all been in stayed places that don't look anything like the photos. So my assumption is people don't have any reason to do that. So if I go and see 1,000 photos from individuals who are all putting stuff up that looks great, my belief in that is infinitely higher than if the brand's done it, because I assume the brand's done it on the best day of the year when they've just had a clean, whereas people don't have an incentive to do that.
Yeah. I guess on that trust point, trying to segue here, but we're recording this on the eve of the general election.
Yes.
By the time it's out, the election will be all done, but I just kind of wanted to get your perspective on social media and politics at the moment, and I guess your take on what impact it's having, how healthy that is, the positives, the negatives.
I don't think it'll be used in this election, has been used in this election a lot more than any other. But we're not, for clarity, we're not involved in any political party or working for them out of choice at this point. Mainly because there's not really a great option. If there was, and we really stood behind someone collectively, and I think we'd really, I'm certain we could get someone elected.
I mean, the opportunity for politicians or political parties to use your type of marketing techniques is huge. Yeah,
they're not. They're still using the traditional guys who are then, doing some shit, right? There's a lot of stuff going on YouTube, particularly from the Conservatives. It's just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, neither here nor there. I think it's an incredibly powerful tool. I think we're going to see the next generation of politicians who truly understand social. Somebody is going to get elected prime minister out of nowhere who actually understands how to build an audience and do this properly, because none of the others do, and they haven't brought the right people in to do it yet. So the first time someone that does know how to do it comes in, they will win for sure, because it's just so open. I got hit yesterday. I'm not going to say who I'm voting for, but I got hit. I said to my brother, oh God, I'm just not even sure. I just can't even, because I don't even want to vote for the person that I'm going to vote for.
Yeah.
And so I said, I might not bother. And I got hit by an ad on Facebook yesterday from the opposing party telling me it's going to be really close, so we need you. And it's had the exact opposite effect. And I am now going to go and vote, but against the people that have paid to get me to do it, because they don't understand who I am. They're using general data information on the borough I live in and things like that, which it doesn't mean anything. No. So you could understand which way I was going to go if you actually looked at it, but they haven't. So it's a very unpersonalized message, and that is where we are still, right? Facebook ads, even generic ones, going to work a lot better than TV. But when they actually understand how to get into personalized niche peer-to-peer content, like, they're going to kill it. It's more suited to a liberal left-leaning party than a right one, because the community of influencers and talent is obviously going to be much more left because of the age. So, you know, it'd be pretty difficult to go and get people to advocate for the Conservatives, to be honest. A hell of a lot easier to go and get them to do it for Labour or Lib Dems or whoever else. The Greens probably the easiest. But I don't think people have even seen what's possible yet, because there's still very few people really in this space doing that with these guys. They're still doing it through the old traditional channels. But I have no doubt Donald Trump won the election, I think, certainly in part because of that, because of a very smart Facebook strategy. But Hillary ran the same strategy, right? To be clear, just they were doing all the same things. They just didn't do it as well.
And there's evidence to say, I think Barack Obama's strategy was the first kind of example of it, and
exactly.
Trump built on that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, Corbyn's been doing stuff with grime MCs for the last 3 or 4 years. And he's absolutely right to be doing it. That is what he should be doing. He should be speaking to that community.
Yeah.
But there are, again, for me, they're still just scratching the top of that. You know, I don't think they're going to cut through in the way that they think they are, because they're still doing it in a traditional format. You know what I mean? It's still, all they're doing is replacing the person asking the question with someone from that community. What they actually need to do is change the style of it. You know, make that something that, you know, someone that actually lives in East London and is 19 to 23, make it something that's actually relevant for them. And it is not a one-on-one interview with a rapper asking Jeremy Corbyn. Like, that isn't actually going to do it. There are other ways to do it, which I'm not going to go through, but you know, so it's started, but it's, you know, this is because the ability to actually hit people in a niche way is possible now. So
we're not far off, probably.
I know we're there.
Yeah,
we're there.
We're not far off from political marketing catching up.
Yeah. What it will need is something new, I think, because just in general in politics, right? I think there's definitely an opportunity in the UK. We can see that, but you know, Trump's shown it in the US, and then you look at Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. It's another sort of new thing. I think the next general election, somebody will win it out of nowhere, and they'll win it by doing something like this.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, it's been a really interesting conversation. 3 quickfire questions. They're the same for everybody. Firstly, what did you used to believe that you no longer believe in?
Cool. I think probably that I don't know if it's like what I used to believe, but it's my acceptance that I can't have everything, I think, is something I maybe used to think I could, or I could have, you know, I could have a sort of a selection of it. I think doing what we do, people often ask, you know, what do you give up? And it's different for everyone, but the answer is you've got to give something up. And so to do anything significant, any agency owners looking to grow their business, thinking, how do we do it? It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, you got to give stuff. You just got to give stuff. I've done that with friendships, and you know, I don't spend as much time as I'd want to with my wife and kids, and at times I probably don't spend as much time at work, right? Sometimes that's the thing I sacrifice, but there's always a sacrifice. So maybe that 10 years ago I probably didn't understand what was actually needed, and that's not to try and put people off, it's just to understand that there are sacrifices. Doesn't mean I'm happily married, got 2 great kids. It doesn't mean you can't have lots of things, but I haven't, I used to go to every Chelsea game, and I haven't watched a football game, to be honest, in the last like 4 years, since my, every weekend is just with the kids. So you're always gonna have to give something up.
Yeah, nice. If this wasn't your mission, what would be?
I guess I would have found something else I believed was broken, and I'd be trying to fix it. That would have to be something that I felt a group of people had got control or power on. I've got no interest in trying to break up people. Just, you see a market trader doing well, I've got no interest in trying to get involved to break that. But I see, I think before I did go, I had a thought about the banking system. I think the banking system is completely broken. And I think the likes of Starling and Monzo and Revolut and these guys are a part of the solution for that. But I think it's much more broken than just, have a card without, you know what I mean? I think there are fundamental issues with the entire banking system that a new way of doing it, whether that's through blockchain or other methods, but there must be a better way of doing that. And yes, somebody will make a lot of money when they do that, but they'll also make, it better for humanity, right? There's just like, it's a lot of people suffer because of those banks.
There's a bedrock there, which is much bigger than people probably
very
understand at the moment.
I mean, they went out of business and got bailed out. So how difficult is it to break that up? Well, I mean, maybe impossible, because they lost trillions and we gave it back to them. So, I mean, if that doesn't show you it's a broken model, then I don't know what is. But, there are just so, as an entrepreneur, trying to get credit or anything like this, an absolute nightmare. I get treated like I'm homeless because I'm a shareholder. Right. It's very one size fits all, and it all suits the bank and not ever the consumer or anybody trying to sort of take entrepreneurial risk, whatever it may be. I think there's a better system to come there. So that would probably be I also think pharmaceutically in the US and other places that's a complete mess. And again, that's another industry I think should be broken up, where you've got anywhere you've got a handful of people. And it's always people, right? Not businesses. Someone owns the business ultimately. Yeah. Even if they're public listed, you've still got major shareholders. Somebody has an interest in why they will charge $1,000 for that drug rather than $100 or whatever. And anything like that, I think, creates a big opportunity. In our industry, there are 4 big holding groups, right? So you're a problem, they buy you, and then you're not a problem. So they get to keep their sort of, well, we'll set the price, we'll sort all this out, all that sort of stuff. So anything where you've got there are very few monopolies nowadays, but there are a lot of collectives of people or companies at the top that make it very difficult for everyone in the market. Any opportunity to break that, I think, is a great thing. Cool.
And finally, if you could recommend one book for members of the Journey Further book club to read, what would
I would recommend watching our vlog. Obviously.
Very good answer.
I'm one, because I'd like you to watch the vlog, but 2, because I don't really read. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I'll be honest, I don't really remember them. It's sort of I try and be as present as possible in these things, so I take the things I need to, but I don't think anyone should look to anyone else for the answers to their life, to be honest. I think most of it's inside. So yeah, I would I'm sure there are some good ones. It depends what you're doing. Maybe one I would recommend, actually, for completely separately from business, is just because I was on a podcast the other day with a guy who's absolutely raving about it, but is the Alan Carr books. Have you heard of them?
Right, okay.
He's an addiction specialist. So if anyone's trying to give up smoking or anything like that, I would strongly suggest you go and read that. My brother did that and gave up, and I was with 2 guys that also did the same thing. They had him on the podcast, so that one.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But the vlog, obviously.
Arron, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. So much interesting stuff there, and just thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure.